Hello, and welcome to SUSE Live. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about digital transformation. I have with me Jeff Price. Jeff, why don't you do a quick introduction?
Hi, Brent. Glad to be here. I am Jeff Price. I've been with SUSE for almost 22 years now. I am currently acting as a field CTO, meeting with customers and giving them the technical to do and helping them, make sure that our solutions fit their problems and create relationships and all of that.
Very good.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I saw recently you published a blog that caught my attention on digital transformation and some of the key things to consider in success. And when I was reading the opening of that, one of the things that I think is important for people to understand is that studies and surveys show that upwards of 70% of digital transformation initiatives either stall out or completely fail to meet their expectations and deliver a return on investment. And what I want to do today is really kind of dive into that and explore that. What are some of the telltale signs and what can companies be doing and thinking about to keep their initiatives on track?
Yeah.
So why don't you start off with just a little bit on what's the headline of really getting the organization started and on the journey to success?
I think, great questions. I think it's hard. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Keeping your focus, keeping your eye on the ball, setting things in motion and not getting distracted. One of the big reasons a lot of these transformations fail is or stall out is because they're competing for the same resources.
Mm-hmm.
Or they lack executive sponsorship at the right places at the right time. Or there's too many transformations happening at the same time. I know what a digital transformation is. You know what a digital transformation is. I don't think we're doing anybody any favors by not just calling it what it is.
Okay.
No sugarcoating needed. This is change in IT, the hard change, the thing that means you have to change a process. You have to change people. You have to change tools. You have to skill up. You have to invest in ways that you didn't maybe plan for or forecast for. And those are the worst, right? The things that you don't have the budget for. You want to spend your money on innovative things or competing transformations. So again, back to that failure rate, largely it comes from split attention span theater. Too many changes going on that are taking the key stakeholders' attention. Now, the counterpoint then is also important. If you're looking for signs of success and how to get them, I'm sure we want to scratch at that a little
Absolutely,
bit.
yeah. Well, let's start with how should somebody start? What should they? This is like say they're hard.
Yeah.
Do I want to tackle hard all at one time, or where do I go with that?
The best approach is to build up to those things that are hard. And gaining momentum is critical.
Uh-huh.
So don't start with the hard things. There is a book, The Hard Things First or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I've found better is because you're, maybe having to change a little culture. And what did Drucker say? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
So the best intentions can be crushed by having people that aren't ready to change. So what you do is you start small. You get something that's important. It will leverage or, pave the way for other wins, and go for the quick wins and be very vocal about it.
Yeah.
If the stakeholders or executive sponsors are have more than one transformation in their midst, more than one mission critical thing that they're a stakeholder for, instead of having them be the stakeholder for the whole thing, you can kind of find those parts that are critical, that they can get behind, that they have expertise in, and make them the winner of that section. The wins need to come so that that momentum starts to build. Other people in the organization will notice, be loud and proud, trigger those dopamine and responses, serotonin responses to establish habits, good habits of success. You do that one small victory at a time. I think what they say is millimeter of progress is still progress. But yeah, that is the way to help people with their attention span problem, right? Too many transformations going on.
Yeah.
There are too many changes. The ability to kind of focus in a little bit more on the things that they're good at, build bigger teams and better teams. And I think those are some good things to start with.
What are some signs along the way, and I think you talk about this in the paper as well, that maybe something's not going in the direction you want it to go, or is running into problems? What should people be looking for so that it doesn't drag on to where you eventually just scrap the whole thing?
Yeah. Again, I think, size matters.
Yeah.
Having a good, I guess, a bit of history under your belt as far as I've done successful projects of this type before, getting the expertise, understanding if your culture is going to get in the way. Right now, with all of these stacking up changes, I mean, for goodness sakes, we've all heard the message, right? Containerization, cloud native, maturing your development processes, and the ease at which software is now being created. Don't get me started on AI yet, but even more so question. Tomorrow, these things are going to come at us. These services that we build ourselves. We can consume software as a service. We can also build it for our own organization. And containerization and spinning up clusters easily, and taking a real solid look at your platforms to make sure that you can do infrastructure as code, you can do code as code, you can do security as code. All important, and especially with innovation that just begs your participation. Mm-hmm. Little thing about AI. Again, this is not the topic of today's conversation, but it is inexorable. It is here. It is changing IT around us, and people will need to compete. They will need to be agile. They will need to move to these type of software platforms, containerization platforms, container security solutions, all of this, so that they can move faster. Mm-hmm. It's not now just, I'm crossing the chasm, from virtualization or OS. Yeah, well, ask for a rope and get somebody to help you move across that one. It's here.
Well, I think one thing that that brings to mind is that, this isn't we were talking beforehand, digital transformation isn't a one-time thing, right? It happens because processes or technologies are allowed to degrade over time or fall behind, and now I need to jump to that next thing. What should people be thinking about on the technology choices to help smooth that as we go forward and over time? Because change is only accelerating. Yep. And, if you build something, you want it to be malleable and flexible as you go into the future to give you, more choices as you go forward.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Agility is a key thing that everyone should keep in mind. That should be a driving principle. Mm-hmm. The blog, there's a tenant in there, I think it was numbered, vendor lock-in. Mm-hmm. Portable or bust is the laptop sticker.
Yeah.
Designing for that, keeping those tenants as part of the way you do code, the way you build solutions. As you are moving to these, you're not one and done. You're one and the fun has just begun. Yeah. I
like that one. I'll remember that.
That is how we're consuming everything, whether we're subscribing, to this service or that service. You're always getting the update, But I liked that old bug, mm-hmm. You're always getting the updates on your phones and all of that stuff. This is how we consume things now. being able to get there quickly, having open APIs, open source software, getting out from those chains that, affect your being nimble.
Mm-hmm.
I think the open source mantra is not just a yay open source. This is why it's important. It keeps you from being leveraged in the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
and gives you the ability to have leverage. A year and a half ago, I was speaking at a cloud summit in Vancouver, and the topic was, right clouding, really. Talk about right sizing your workloads. This is about diversification in cloud infrastructure. Even now in Europe, they just published, or now DORA is enforced. And this is going to mean that, hey, you're a lot more on the hook. What if that cloud provider goes away?
Uh-huh.
Does that impact your ability to do business or your ability to do business with your customers? So diversification.
Yeah.
Sure. That could mean hybrid. That could mean on-prem and cloud of choice. But really, once you've made that choice, or have to because of some, legislative diktat du jour, then building your infrastructure as code and being able to plug in a new provider. Oh, well, I'm using unified APIs. Here's how I deploy this application, this security policy. And at this point, it's that Kubernetes cluster, this Kubernetes cluster,
Mm-hmm.
at the edge, on-prem, wherever. And this is what people are going for. We've heard it. Again, we've heard it. Cloud native everywhere if you can.
Sure.
You need to. Because the next type of workloads are going to involve inference hardware, GPUs.
Yeah.
I'm going to want to build an AI agent or take my business workflow and make sense of my own data privately.
Yeah.
Keep my data here. Even people who've got, agreements for data sovereignty. Check them once, check them twice.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in question, being able to deploy AI solutions with a standardized platform that's open, has APIs.
And cloud native, that, like you said, it's just to reinforce and be very clear about it, that allows you to have choice and flexibility to bring in different pieces. I always often think about maybe two reasons that drive need for change in technology. One is, what if something goes away, or some pricing changes occur that want to force, that make it, untenable from a business standpoint, you want to move. There's others where I want to take advantage of something that somebody's now offering. And I think about this in the cloud a lot, right? Each cloud kind of has a degree of differentiation on the service values they provide, right? And so,
Yeah, they need to build a value ladder as well.
right. So as a business, I may want to choose one cloud to solve one problem, but a different cloud for another problem. And I need to service my customers at the edge where I've got a point of interaction. So I've got to have flexibility to be able to do all of those.
And now with DORA, you need to test the removal of a particular provider and the ability to show business resiliency.
Yeah.
Right clouding, right? We used to call it right sizing or, right sourcing. That's what this is. It's just a different delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
So yes, spreading it apart gives you leverage.
Yeah.
Breaking free of some of those chains that, read the fine print. Cloud. I say in the paper, I talk about the Roach Motel effect, right? You can check in, but you can't check out. Egress fees from cloud providers. They're going to get you. If it's easy to get in, it's going to be expensive to get out.
Right.
So, open. Again, that's this whole, this flurry is all about open source, open APIs, being able to connect things. And I will say, while we're on the topic of development and being able to be flexible and nimble, if you are going to build AI solutions, keep your models, large language models, or other architectures, keep them at the edge of your development. The edge, don't embed them too tightly, loosely couple them. Why? The models are getting better all the time. You've laughed at me. I said, today's AI is the worst you'll ever use. We hear this.
Yeah.
The models will get better if you keep them at the edge of your architecture. You can take out the old one,
Yeah.
put in the new one, and what happens? Your system just got better.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And I think it's to prepare yourself for AI and not have another chasm
Right.
to cross.
Right.
I think this flexibility and openness of the platform that you choose and the architecture that you build from that, not just hoping that I'll figure out how to transform, plan the replacement before you even put the first one in place, and have that become just the norm.
Exactly.
How you evolve.
Exactly. You're going to need to have some behavioral changes.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about culture being hard. Who was it? Charlie Munger was heard saying, talking about, needing to change the culture, and he flipped his lid. Like, that's not what you do, because it's hard.
Yeah.
But a culture fitting in with that, finding and building those teams around small wins, you are going to affect the culture, because the win part of it is really contagious.
Yeah.
People want to be successful at those endeavors. And if you can snowball them correctly, and 1.5 times, that's the number of increase or improvement, or likelihood of success when you have the right sponsorship at the right levels. You're choosing to start small and snowball the success. You're going to improve your likelihood of being on the cover for another big endeavor that didn't go so well.
The last point, let's kind of maybe close with this, and maybe because it's the most important part, is the people, right? It's, we talk about technology, we talk about executive sponsoring, hey, go do this. But the people need to be empowered and skilled and so forth to do a digital transformation.
Sorry.
Talk a little bit about your experiences in that and working with different companies.
So this is where having a good services organization. Now, I've spent a lot of time in services at SUSE, and very fond of being able to do things right and help people solve the problem. One of the best things you can do is ask people a couple of good questions. First of all, you really want to understand the problem you are trying to solve. Another good question, borrow this from Tim Ferriss. What does it look like when it's right? And what you're scratching for is correct scope, correct measurable wins, some way to identify when things, you've achieved what you set out to achieve. And you can really do a reality check as close to the front as possible. If people are sizing things correctly, you'll know. If they aren't, you haven't asked enough questions, or maybe you haven't broken up the project into the right bite-sized pieces. Skilling up people should be part of those plans when you're rolling new technologies. There'll be plenty of advice out there. So it's really easy to do some research right now to pick the right thing to chew on. But people upskilling is a big part of that. And again, with the changes in technology that are amongst us, it's easier than ever to learn something.
Right.
Right now, because this is inexorable, I said, the AI wave is the next huge transformation that it will affect all of us. It's best to roll up one's sleeves and get into it. These will be skills that will be part of the puzzle. And it's easier than ever to learn these things now. YouTube for a weekend, and you're going to know a lot more than you did yesterday. These are the things that are scratching the needles. These are the things that are going to help us realize new innovation at our companies. And I'm just as hopeful about the possibilities, but I'm also very, very eager to share that security is also really important. And I'd like everybody to be able to learn security right along with learning how to implement AI solutions, and find that shifting left You're going to be doing containerizations and cloud native. And you're going to be upskilling there because you have to, because that's how software is deployed. Let's show you, or let's bring you to a well of information about how to secure those workloads, how to make that process easy. You hear an awful lot about, DevSecOps, like that's easy. It can be.
Yeah.
It can be. Make small teams working on small solutions that you're going to get the win on. Put security as part of the tenets of that, along with portability, along with open. You're really setting up a recipe for some good tasting success.
Yeah.
If you can easily shift left, understand the compliance that you're under, and hey, having a tool like, again, sorry, sales pitch, but SUSE security. I really love what it lets you do and what it helps you achieve from a security standpoint, from a security as code standpoint, mixing that with the entire Rancher Prime solution stack fleet to deploy now your app and your security CRD, Zero Trust, the app collection we have. Man, I could go on and on. So we really have components.
I think we're going to have to do another a talk, Jeff, and got it in my mind already on security and how somebody can, I think not to do the next blog all at one time, but security today is very much a multifaceted aspect, and cloud native and now AI, and there's so many aspects that just disrupt traditional security models that I think we'll pick that up. The next one and have another session on that.
Yep. What's next? There's a lot that's coming next, and it's coming a lot faster than people, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about.
So as they work through their digital transformation, let me wrap a bow around this then.
Okay.
Because I think you just hit it, and there's a next always coming.
Yes.
Right? And companies need to get through this digital transformation, but think about it maybe in a different way than they have in the past. And this is what you and I were talking about. There's always a digital transformation that's coming up because we've let things retrograde and create a chasm, right?
Yeah.
So set yourself up for success in the long term with a platform that gives you flexibility, that gives you openness, continually invest in it to keep yourself current, to not get into that next chasm.
That's it.
And set yourself up for a continuum of improvement. I think that would be my call to action for our audience.
That and read the blog.
And read
the
blog.
I do go into some behaviors, and I really think it's important that organizations check it out. If you see these signs, if you see these signs, there are some indicators there. You talked about one earlier. Like, oh, that's not how we do it here.
Yeah.
That's a warning.
Yeah.
That's not an example. And that's a little bit of what I'm doing in my my next blog, is kind of like pointing out, instead of the here it is on a laptop sticker, we're gonna go through like Jim Rohn said, you can go through life and you can be an example, or you can be a warning.
Yeah.
I want our customers to know that with our solutions, they can be exemplary. They can be the ones that everyone asks for a reference. There's a lot of reference capabilities by hitting a dependable stack that's secure from the foundation, easy to deploy, easy to manage, and lets you move on. It's just change.
Okay.
Shouldn't be this hard.
I look forward to reading that one, and then we'll get back together.
All right. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully there was a few key nuggets there that you can put into use. And I really like this notion of, building your digital transformation strategy to set you up for long-term success. So hopefully you don't have to do it again too soon, because change is coming. Thank you for joining us on SUSE Live, and I look forward to talking to you next time.